Good morning guys, hope you're doing well. Just making this video here from my garden. What a beautiful day it is. It's absolutely stunning out here, isn't it? And really feels like spring is in the air, and the garden is starting to blossom and bloom. We've got our wisteria here, which is just gonna flower soon. It's gonna be amazing. But just reminded as I come out here this morning of how we so underestimate small things to make a big difference in the world. So, you know, all of this would have started as tiny little seeds in the ground, and now look at it, it's blossoming, it's growing, it's turning into something amazing. And I think the same is true of so many different things. So like, same is true of the coronavirus in a very different way, in a destructive way. You know, Boris Johnson just been taken into intensive care. Alicia and I were saying last night how back in January, December, when this first hit the news, we totally underestimated the power of this thing, this tiny little virus, to make such a massive difference in our world. It's changed everything around us. And I just want to encourage you this morning that the same is true of the gospel, okay? So in Sarah Dodd's devotion that she's written for us, you'll find that on our Facebook page, she reminds us this morning in that devotion that the power of the gospel is foolishness to some. Some people think it's a load of fairy stories, they think it's just a load of rubbish, that it's just something that somebody made up in the medieval times. But we know the truth, that the gospel is like a tiny but powerful seed for life in the world, and it's not foolishness to us, but it's the power of salvation. And so just to remind you, I'm going to read a bit of that passage in a minute that she takes us to in 1 Corinthians, but just to remind you that this Easter time, go and re-engage with those stories again of the Gospels. You might have read them over and over again, but they're true and reliable history, and Jesus really did rise and die and rise again. Maybe just go and listen to some stuff online about that, and just remind yourself of the truth that this simple, small, almost, it could have been an insignificant incident that happened in some bizarre history 2,000 years ago, but it wasn't. It didn't say in the confines of what happened on top of that hill all those years ago, but the events of the cross and resurrection of Jesus actually blew the world apart. How on earth it could have done that if it wasn't true, I don't even know, because yeah, you've got to read it, but the circumstances around it, I mean, the disciples were you know, a bunch of nobodies from nowhere. They were fishermen, they were tax collectors, they weren't especially liked or educated or well established within their communities, and yet because of the power of the gospel, they completely turned the world upside down. In the coming years, you read about that in the book of Acts, these nobodies turn into some ones because some kind of power, some kind of seed of life in them changes everything around them. And so I think we see in the accounts of the scriptures that it's true. I think we see in church history that it's true. And I think we still see today that it's true in our own lives. And so I'm going to read the end of this passage here in 1 Corinthians chapter 18 to you this morning, that Sarah takes us to. So 1 Corinthians 18 at verse 26 says this: "For consider your calling, brothers. Not many of you were wise according to worldly standards." That's very true. But not many were powerful, not many were of noble birth. But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring nothing things that are, so no human being might boast in the presence of God. And because of him, you are in Christ Jesus, who became to us wisdom from God, righteousness and sanctification and redemption, so that as it is written, let the one who boasts boast in the Lord. Amen. Like, just encourage you as you start today that you might feel a bit weak and a bit powerless in this situation, but you have the seed of the gospel within you, the seed of transformation. And yes, it's true, you might need to go away and do some reading and remind yourself of that this morning. But yes, it's true, that power is within you, and you can make a difference during this time. You have everything that you need within you. You might look foolish, you might look weak in the eyes of the world, but with Christ in you, yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, that he would put his spirit within us, and he would elevate those of us who are weak and foolish to be people who can do great things to bring life and light into this world. So just encourage you this morning, get out there, go and do it. We've got this event on tonight. I hope when life hurts, share it online, invite friends. It might seem like a small and a foolish and a weak thing to invite your friends to a simple Facebook event that's not even going to be real, it's going to be online, but God can use small and weak and insignificant things to do amazing works. So invite them along and let's see what happens. Be praying for it tonight, guys, and we will see you there. Bye bye.